Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray, Craig Burley and Shaka here in the studio, continuing to talk about the fallout from Liverpool's League Cup exit to Crystal Palace and Arne Slot's decisions on the team selection that he put out there. He has come under criticism. He insists that his choices were about protecting key players from injury with the games that lie ahead. And this is what he had to say when it was put to him about the inexperienced squad that he did choose to take on Crystal Palace. He said, we don't have such a big squad as people might tell. There was so much focus on the amount of money we spent. People all of a sudden think we have 25 players available, but we mainly have 20 players. Then we have 4 injuries. I only have one right fullback, Connor Bradley, as an example. Every time I had to play him twice in 3 days or 3 times in 7 days last season, I had to take him off with a hamstring injury or something else. Are you willing to take that risk with such a big week coming up? Beth Lindorff is now joining us, a Liverpool correspondent, but I can kind of guess what Craig's
No. I mean, we're
just,
right now. You know, whenever a team goes on a little bit of a bad run, we start hearing this spiel from managers. I don't think there's going to be a lot of sympathy coming Liverpool's way, bearing in mind they're the current champions of England. They spent a fortune in the summer. Yeah, they've got some injuries. They haven't got the most in the Premier League. You know, you've got Tottenham with 10 injuries at the moment to some key players. You got Fulham with 7 less of a squad. You got Brighton with 7 players out. They're expecting Gravenberg back potentially for the weekend. They are expecting Isak potentially back for the weekend, and so he rested a bunch of his first teamers. And he did play the kids, and we talked about this on Tuesday, I think, Stevie and I. We said we think he'll weaken the team because he's going to be thinking foremost about Aston Villa at the weekend. So I wasn't surprised, and I wasn't surprised Crystal Palace went quite strong because the cup competitions for them have become very important and quite successful, actually, FA Cup and Community Shield. And so that wasn't a surprise, but I think we're already hearing what we're hearing from Arne Slot isn't going to wash, I think, with a lot of people, bearing in mind they have got a big squad and he has got a lot of talent to be able to select from. And no club, no team coming into sort of November, December is sitting there, unless you're the luckiest manager alive, Shaka, is sitting there with, you know, every key player fit and available. Somebody's always dealing with something, and I don't think there's going to be much sympathy whatsoever.
Well, it's not getting any sympathy from me, not the kind of money that Liverpool spent this summer in reinforcing the reigning English champions. Now, all of a sudden, you have a couple of injuries and you're so threadbare that you put the kids out. No, that being said, this is what Liverpool do. Liverpool play the kids in these competitions. You saw that in both cup competitions last season. You've seen it season on for God alone knows how long. The only difference is the form that Liverpool come into this cup tie in, that Arne Slot is having to answer for, and this, well, it doesn't help. I don't think it affects or should affect them in any way, but Arne Slot answering to that poor form and his selection choices, I just think adds more pressure to the team. I don't feel he needs to answer this. He doesn't need to address it, but for some reason he keeps getting asked about it, and he keeps answering it. And that, for me, is just piling on the pressure on an already under pressure starting 11.
As much has been made, Beth, obviously, with what the guys have mentioned, 450 million spent in the summer, and then us hearing that he doesn't have quite the exact squad that he would need right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not been received particularly well, and I completely understand why. I think the makeup of Liverpool's squad at the moment isn't as balanced as Slot would probably like it to be. Now, he obviously was involved in those transfer decisions in the summer, but he was by far, you know, he wasn't the only one. There's people above him who will have signed off on things and will have sat as a committee and made these decisions. Now, I think at the time when the Mark Gay deal fell through on deadline day, it felt like that was an error from Liverpool's part to let it get to that point where they ended up leaving themselves short. I think that was the big sort of glaring gap in the squad that a lot of people would have liked to have been filled. Now, there was an element of bad luck in the sense that Giovanni Leone, the other centre-back that they brought in, who looked very good on his debut against Southampton in the last round of the Cup, picks up an ACL injury and is now out for the season. So from potentially going into the season with 5 centre-backs, had Gay's deal gone through. They've now got 3. So there is an element with Arne Slot where that he's not wrong. I think there are areas in the squad that could have been bolstered in the summer and weren't. But ultimately, it's the squad that he's got now, and he's got to work with it. But I think in terms of the rotation, and as Craig sort of alluded to earlier, I think regardless of what would have happened last night, the big game and the big games are those 3 coming up: Aston Villa at the weekend, Real Madrid in the Champions League, and then Manchester City. I think regardless of what happened in that cup game, those 3 games would still be massive, and that is obviously where his priorities lie, and that is why he ultimately decided to go with that team that he went for last night. And whether he'll be vindicated for that decision depends on how well Liverpool do over these next 3 games.
They knew they needed a defender in the summer, Craig.
Well, they did to bolster the squad, but that doesn't detract away from the fact that Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahim Konate are not playing well. And you can maybe look at the full-backs outside them, and Kerkez is definitely struggling. But I've mentioned on here many, many times, I don't think Van Dijk's helping him as a captain. I really think he's kind of thrown him under the bus a little bit with his gesticulating to him in front of the crowd. And as a young player, it just drains your confidence. But there's no doubt himself, and particularly Konate, have not played well. For 7 months last year, Liverpool were pretty much flawless domestically. And so was Arne Slot. Whether it was on-field decisions or whether it was press conferences. And we all sat here and said, man, this guy speaks normally. And he speaks pretty truthfully. And he speaks a lot of common sense. And what we're seeing here is a manager who really, for the first time in his Liverpool career as a manager, has been asked a lot of questions. And he is going down the path that a lot of managers go down, where a lot of it's kind of gobbledygook. You know, he talks about the right back and Frimpong's out and having to play Bradley 3 times in a week. You know, Shaka and I were sitting saying, you know, back in the day, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a week. That was the norm. That was the norm. You played on a Saturday, you played on a Wednesday, you played on a Saturday. That's not a big deal. Shouldn't be for these super fit players these days. And also, he's played Szoboszlai there, but also he could put Joe Gomez there. Joe Gomez has played right back 100 times. I know it's not ideal, but you could put Joe Gomez there. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff, I think, here that the manager's just trying to make an excuse. An excuse at the moment because he can't figure it out. He can't work out what his best team is. He's not been able to get Florian Wirtz in the side and working, so he took him out. I think he made a big boo-boo in 2 games, Chelsea and Man United, by playing Alexander Isak ahead of Ekitike. And I think most people shared that sentiment. But let me just tell you one thing. When he went down to Stamford Bridge, Arne Slot with this Liverpool team, and they got played off the park, they got outworked and they got outthought. And they deservedly got beat. Chelsea had 10 injuries that day. Chelsea had double the injuries Liverpool had. Chelsea had a makeshift back 4. Chelsea had 2 centre-halves that I don't think had ever played together, or certainly hadn't played together many times. So they had their own issues. So this is not a Liverpool thing. This is an Arne Slot needs to figure this out, and he needs to figure it out fast. You saw that graphic. Villa, who have 5 on the bounce, including Tottenham away and City at home, so they're finding their feet. Real Madrid, who have just won the Classical. And Man City, who did have a bad defeat at Villa Park, but apart from that, they've been scoring goals for fun. So he has to find a way to figure out all these problems, and he has to do this very, very soon. And stop making the excuses.
Going to be justified in those decisions that he made in this Carabao Cup game if these go well?
Well, if these go well, to your question, Kay, I do not think that Arne Slot has to justify the decisions made in the Carabao Cup. It's the Carabao Cup. Liverpool have played the kids in the Carabao Cup for God alone knows how long. I don't think he needs to answer those questions. Him answering those questions have made it more of an issue than I think it needs to be. The bigger issue, which we've kind of all harped on, is the imbalance of the squad. And while, yes, it would have been great if they got Guehi, they tried to get him, if you recognise that there's a spot to be filled in the centre-back position, why leave it till the 11th hour to try to sign Guehi, and then Glasner threatened, listen, if you sell him, I'm leaving. Now all of a sudden, Crystal Palace pulled the plug on that deal. You had all summer to do this. You chased simultaneously Ekitike and Alexander Isak. You land Ekitike, you still continue to chase Alexander Isak when that was no longer the priority. Surely at that point, once you sign Ekitike, Gehi is the priority. But you complete those two, and now you can't figure out what to do with those two, how to play both of them together. And because you focus on them, you lose out on Gehi. So there's a lot, and I know Slot doesn't take all the responsibility. Yes, other people have to kind of sign off on all of this, but he ultimately is the face of this club, or certainly the face of the players that they sign. And the responsibility will fall on his doorstep first of all. So he has to address that. For me, what happened to Carabao Cup really does not matter. It really shouldn't. Now you go and you win these 3 games, nobody's talking about that. It just kind of, but you have a bad time in those 3 games, everybody's focusing on not the Carabao Cup, but more to the point, the previous games before that you lost and were outplayed in.
Yeah, he's got to get it right now, Beth. It's 6 losses in the last 7 games. What's been the feeling at the club after such a bad run? It does not make for good reading at all.
Doesn't, and I think there is maybe a little bit of a divide at the moment between the online fan base and people on Merseyside. I think that the general sense from the match-going fans is that they're still right behind Slot. There was a number of them who stayed behind last night at the final whistle and they were chanting his name. And I think there is a recognition that despite the fact that an awful lot of money was spent in the summer, you know, it does still sometimes take time for players to gel. Doesn't matter how good you are, if you bring in 6, 7 new players and you've got sort of 6 or 7 established starters leaving as Liverpool did in the summer, and some of those departures, by the way, were out of Liverpool's control. You know, Trent Alexander-Arnold wanted to go to Real Madrid, Darwin Núñez wanted to leave, Luis Diaz wanted to leave, so they had to replace those players. It wasn't a case of Liverpool just saying, right, we're just going to rip up this squad because we want to. It was because they had to replace a number of those players. So I think there's a recognition from a lot of people at Liverpool that is the situation Slot finds himself in with a squad that still needs to gel. I think he also has credit in the bank, obviously, from the title win, and also from the way that he handled what was obviously an incredibly difficult event over the summer with the loss of Diogo Jota as well. So I think all of those things mean that the Liverpool fans they haven't turned on him yet, and I don't think they will, you know, for a little while. But you know, goodwill in football is not endless. I think there will come a point if these results keep on coming that there will be questions asked, and you know, he's at the moment the club and the hierarchy are right behind him, but it's obviously difficult to stay behind a manager if they just can't win games. So it is a really decisive week, and I think just to add as well with what the guys were saying about the excuses and things like that, you know, I feel a little bit of sympathy for Slot in the sense, you know, I've been at a lot of his press conferences, both last season and this season, and actually I don't think his demeanour has been particularly different. I think when you're winning games and when you're losing games, the positives that, you know, last season about him being honest and giving tactical insight and things like that are now being interpreted as, oh, he's telling the opponents how to beat him. And so it's very difficult. You know, Ruben Amorim has been through it, Mikel Arteta has been through it. When you're not going through the best patch, everything that you say gets dissected, and I think that is maybe what he needs to be conscious of, because he's maybe creating headlines where it would be better to just maybe keep a little bit quiet, I think, at the moment.
No, he's not going anywhere. Arne Slot's not going. He could lose the next 3 games. He's not going anywhere.
But he has to win that next
Liverpool really act in a sort of knee-jerk. They really have the kind of knee-jerk reaction to the bad results. And the online fan base, I wouldn't give a toss about any of them. The actual fans that go to the game, the match-going fans, the ones with common sense, can see how good a manager he is. The problem is he's got to find a way to figure this out. It's not injuries that are meaning Mo Salah's not playing well. It's not injuries that he selected Alexander Isak over arguably the best and most dangerous player since the Community Shield, and Hugo Ekitike. Alexis McAllister hasn't played particularly well. He's had an injury, hasn't looked himself. Gravenberg hasn't quite looked himself. Szoboszlai's been shifted from pillar to post. The whole Wirtz thing's been well publicised. And I go back to it. The back four, the 2 centre-halves, the real fulcrum of that back four haven't really played well this year. Van Dijk and Konate have struggled to control a back four that has changed full-back positions, whether it be Frimpong or Bradley or Szoboszlai or Kerkez. And, you know, there was even a point you thought, well, you know, maybe he'll have to bring Andy Robertson back in full-time to give Kirkez a rest. But Andy Robertson, if you want, I mean, he played yesterday, but he played for Scotland a couple of weeks ago and he really struggled. So that's not an easy one just to say to Kirkez, you know, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a rest to try and get your confidence back. He's having to throw him in. And he's struggling, the young man. I mean, he can't wait to pass the ball 5 yards. And you can sense it in the crowd. And when a player senses it in the crowd, he becomes even more nervous when he gets on the ball. And it's even worse for him when your skipper is giving you a grilling. So it really is a difficult time. And they face Villa on the weekend, who will just sit back like a cat waiting to pounce. That's what Aston Villa will do. And guess what? That's been one of the Achilles heel of Liverpool this year, is when they've been pressing and when they've been attacking, when they've coughed the ball up, they've been counter-attacked so easily that teams have been able to get at their goalkeeper and at the back line. So I think Aston Villa are one of the worst teams they could have been facing at home this weekend because of the contrast and styles of play.
Is it a must-win at the weekend then, Beth, against Villa, considering the results so far?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Craig. I think even if he lost the next three, I think it would be difficult to see a world where he goes just purely because of the credit that he's got in the bank and for all of those reasons I mentioned earlier. So in one sense, you could say, you know, it's not a must-win in terms of his future. But I think in terms of just changing the mood around, you know, there was a week last season where Liverpool played all three of these next three teams, Aston Villa, Real Madrid and Manchester City, in the same order in the space of a week, and it was sort of season defining in a way because they won all three of those games without conceding a goal. And I think it was the week that really made everyone sit up and take notice of how good Liverpool were. And you know, I think if they manage to get positive results in those same fixtures this week, then it could be a turning point in the season. If they don't, then it's hard to see how they get out of it. I think the fact that they're at home will be a big boost. I asked Arne Slot last night after the game, you know, do you feel like the pressure is on a little bit more having made that gamble in midweek? And he sort of said, listen, if you're Liverpool manager, the pressure is always on when you're losing games. And he said the support of the fans at Anfield last night was really encouraging, and he feels that will be massive. So Liverpool have had quite a lot of away games the last couple of weeks, which isn't an excuse, but I think the fact that they are now back at home for the next couple could be really useful. And I think it could be a real springboard then if they're able to get a positive result against Aston Villa. They go into that game against Real Madrid then with a little bit more confidence. If they lose that game, then trying to plan to face Kylian Mbappe and Vini Jr and Jude Bellingham and all those kinds of players, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, won't sound like much fun at all for Liverpool.
No. Beth, another day and we continue to talk about Vini Jr.'s
Sick of him.
Where he said, I want to apologise to all the Madridistas for my reaction when I was substituted in the Clásico. Obviously, we know what he said here. We know who he apologised to. It's written there.
Well, I can't
Teammates, the club and the president. There was the glaring omission of Xabi Alonso. Now,
well, he is taking them off.
There had been a cordial meeting, according to reports, between the two before this was put out. But still, there's been a lot made, as Gustavo Hoffman joins us, our Brazil correspondent based in Madrid, of the fact, Gustavo, that Xabi Alonso's name wasn't on that lengthy Instagram post, and it wasn't by accident, according to what you're hearing.
Exactly, Keo. Hello again. Once again, I'm here to talk about Vini Jr. Well, Xabi Alonso was left out of this message intentionally. Vini didn't want to make a public apology to Xabi Alonso. He apologized for the fans, the president, his teammates, the club, but he didn't want to say, I'm sorry for Xabi Alonso publicly. What I do know by sources is that he apologized for the team at Valdebebas on Wednesday. But publicly, the message was very clear. He would not apologize for Xabi Alonso. Their relationship is not good, definitely is not good. And what I also do know by sources is that Vini is not the only player who is not happy with Xabi's methods. He was the player who turned it public for everybody that he's not happy with Xabi. But by sources, I know that there are more players who are not happy with Xabi's method. And I'm talking about the daily training. Because when we see Real Madrid, They lead La Liga. They have won every match in Champions League. But what is happening is at Valdebebas, the relationship between Xabi Alonso and some players of Real Madrid squad. And the problem is that Xabi Alonso is a very different manager when we compare to Carlo Ancelotti. The way they talk to the players, the way they take the club daily is completely different. So now, Vini is not happy with Xabi, but he's not the only one.
Oh, Shaq, here we go. Normally it's when you're having a bad time. The top of the league. But I presume they're working a bit harder. I presume Xabi Alonso's bringing a bit more structure. And I don't know this, but Carlo Ancelotti is, if you remember back to, and he's well known as a very good man manager, but he's well known to be a bit more lax in his methods and his training. If you go back to, think all the way back to his end of tenure at Bayern Munich, a lot of the players were saying, and our colleague at the time, Ralf Honigstein, who's no longer working with us, said, the players said it was a bit of a jolly-up. It was too relaxed in training, and it was not enough structure and enough intensity, whatever it is. And I wonder if, and I'm only surmising, but I've seen it when managers come in and come and go, because we've all worked under different managers. And very rarely two managers are the same. One guy comes in, he's a bit more relaxed. Another guy comes in, he's a shouter, he's more demanding, the training's more intense. It might be 2 training sessions a day, whatever it was, things change and players talk. However, this is slightly concerning, I think, if it's rippling through other players. Particularly if those other players, and I'm not saying it is, are Kylian Mbappe, which it doesn't look like. But if it's senior players as well as Vinicius Jr, who's not covered himself in glory here, by the way, if it's senior players that are not happy, that can be difficult.
Yeah, I listen, you have to assume it's senior players, junior players aren't happy.
Well, Rodrigo's one of them, isn't he?
Yeah.
Is that why he's felt more confident, maybe, if it is true that he's left his name out on purpose to put out a post
Absolutely.
like this?
Listen, it was intentional. I think he did it in support of some of those other players who aren't happy with Xabi Alonso and his methods, and feels encouraged by that.
It's a great word, isn't it? Methods.
I guess.
It's like,
Okay.
no, I'm not happy with your methods. How about that method? Sorry, Shaq, to interject.
No,
how about that method is the method currently that has got you where you couldn't get to last year? Top of the league. Right?
And winning a Classico.
And winning the Classico, which you couldn't do last year. That's at least one thing. How's about thinking about that method for the time being?
But so now here's the thing, right? And as much as Real Madrid, whether you think they were right or not in letting go Carlo Ancelotti, that's just how Real Madrid and Florentino Perez have run that club for quite some time. Now you can't question Carlo Ancelotti's methods because of the success that he brought to that club years before last season. But clearly, a change was needed. Or certainly Florentino Perez felt so, and Xabi Alonso come in to deliver that change. And similarly, after Bayern Munich, I think I'm right in saying that Pep Guardiola succeeded Carlo Ancelotti, and it was a change then, which was embraced by the Bayern players at the time, or at least so we were led to believe. But now this is a different Real Madrid in that they've enjoyed an immense amount of success, and I don't want to say have gotten complacent, definitely isn't the right word, but have gotten used to that way of doing things. And while others may be doing things differently, and you saw the results of last season, you have to change. Something had to change from last season. And Xabi Alonso, certainly on the face of it, is delivering that. So I don't understand this level of ill feeling towards Xabi Alonso and his methods, when ultimately, as players, the only thing we care about, or only thing we should care about, are the results on the park.
Just quickly before we go back to Gustavo, it's a great. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but methods is just doing my head in here because it was the method that Xabi Alonso used that was successful for him at Bayer Leverkusen, right? He had a way of doing things at Leverkusen that he was going to bring to Real Madrid. Now, you have to make slight adjustments when you're working with different players and different egos. But he's not going to chuck everything away that he did, that he had great success with in Germany, and come over to Real Madrid and roll over like a puppy dog while all these superstars can stroke him on the stomach. He's not going to do that. He's going to bring with him what he had success with. If this is rippling through more senior players, then Alonso's going to have to deal with this pretty quickly. And there might be a case where Vinicius Jr goes, right, everybody coming with me, lads, and they all stand back and say, no, you're on your own in this one. Maybe they're all going to come and support him. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. I think what we do know, though, is there'll be no apology for leaving Vinicius Jr on the bench this weekend when they play Valencia. And I imagine that's what he's going to do.
No, absolutely not. No apology, that is. We'll see what he does when it comes to the team selection. But how does this whole situation end, Gustavo? Like, what's the thinking of Vini's camp as a solution to this situation? What do they want to happen?
Very, very hard to say, because actually I think that basically we're talking about people management. That's people management. I think that Xabi Alonso is a very young manager. He's still learning at this new profession for him. He was a brilliant player. I think that he's a brilliant tactician. I think that he can become one of the best managers in the next years, but I think that he's still learning how to manage people, how to deal with the egos that there are in the locker room of Real Madrid, as Craig said. So from Vini's sides, from Vini camp, what is really boring Vini and his staff is that they don't understand why Vini is losing so many minutes comparing to last season, because they understand that Vini's performance this season has been good enough to say, well, why are you taking me off? If you check the match of Real Madrid this month, Vini was phenomenal against Juventus, against Getafe, and against Barcelona. He's really playing well. And one more thing that they talk to me, there is no player on the bench who's saying like, man, I'm playing much better than you. I'm having performance much better than you. So Vini's staff, they don't understand why Vini is losing so many minutes with Xabi Alonso. The solution, Kale, I think that both Xabi and Vini should talk one-on-one clearly to understand really what each one thinks and try to resolve things, because Real Madrid is above everybody there. Real Madrid is above Vini. Real Madrid is above Xabi Alonso. Real Madrid is the most important thing there. So I think that they should talk, try to see what they can do. But the solution, real, I think that no one knows. It should come from Xabi, maybe.
My God, it's a mess. And let's be honest, I know Gustavo's close to it, but he's a big baby, isn't he? Vinicius Jr. He's a big baby here. I mean, he was the whole Ballon d'Or thing, and Real Madrid were classless in that Ballon d'Or thing.
So do you think even if he is unhappy, this is not the way to go about it?
Let me give you an opposite here about Vinicius camp and Vinicius not been happy about minutes. That's a different manager, different views. Benched him at the start of the season, has been taking him off. That's the manager's choice. Let me give you a reverse here to this way of thinking. Vinicius camp are not happy that Alonso's taking Vinicius off and he's losing minutes. What did Vinicius Jr.'s camp say last year when one of the most successful and highly regarded managers in world football was under pressure at Real Madrid, and he was having to give Vinicius Jr. a kick up the backside during the game and saying, if you don't start running, I'm going to take you off? What was the camp saying then? Well, the camp apologising to Carlo Ancelotti, who was getting it in the neck from everybody, because Barcelona were flying, they couldn't win a game. Mbappe was on his own. Vinicius Jr. wasn't playing well. Rodrigo wasn't playing well. Vinicius Jr. wasn't working hard, or working hard enough. And that's factual, because Ancelotti was public about it in his press conference. Yeah, I told him if he didn't start working harder, he was coming off. So you can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. And that's the way that he seems to want it. I think he has to knuckle down and roll his sleeves up and take it on the chin this Vinicius this is, and get on with it.
Do these situations ever end well, though, Shaka?
No, they don't. I think at this point it's deteriorated to the point, and certainly publicly, because at least back in the day, when you had a disagreement with a manager or anybody else, everything was dealt with indoors. We deal with it in the locker room or wherever as it is, and it sorts itself out. But to have it spill out and play out as publicly as certainly this is, with, I mean, everything at stake for Real, well, not necessarily for Real Madrid, but certainly for Vinicius as a player who, it's not lost in me, he's got what, 20 or 21 months left on this contract. You've got a manager who's come in, a manager new to management, yes, but knows this football club, knows the politics of this football club as well as anybody else, who's just come in and certainly, so far results-wise, has turned things around. So I don't see a situation where either backs down or either feels they need to back down or make any kind of compromise or extend any kind of olive branch. And as a result, I just don't see how this is mended in any meaningful way.
It's a real shame, and because we when we were doing the game at the weekend, we said this is going to take up the headlines for a few days or whatever. This is what people are going to be talking about, and here we are. And it's a shame because he's a great player. He's such a talented player. I love watching him play. You know, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, and I get that. I understand it. It's who he is. It's what makes him the player he is that passion, and sometimes you just got to try and control it a little bit, which he seems to have a lot of difficulty with. And listen, I wouldn't necessarily criticise that because that's how some people are. But after the event, you've really got to take some stock. But it's a shame that we're talking about it. But I go back to the point from the weekend. When the manager is trying to bring people on to have fresh legs and then freshen up the midfield as well and basically shut up shop, who else was he going to take off? When Rodrigo was coming on, who else was he going to take off? Brahim Diaz had just come on and was playing further forward. Kylian Mbappe was the star man, was still on. There was only one player, unless he was subbing off the sub in Brahim Diaz or taking Kylian Mbappe off before Vinicius, he was the only candidate in the front line to come off for Rodrigo. It was a no-brainer. So it's not like, you know, it's not like he had two other choices that were definite to be taken off. He was the guy at that point. It was quite an easy decision from Xabi Alonso, I thought.
Yeah, he looks to be having a bit of fun now, though. He's not carrying it too much. Vini Jr, he's been having fun at a Halloween party with his girlfriend. What can you tell us about these pictures, Gustavo?
Oh, boy.
Well, that's Vini. This one is Vinicius Jr. Eder Militão was also in the party. Endrick and Rodrigo, they had their own Halloween parties. Well, they had to make the party yesterday because today they trained. Tomorrow we have the morning training, press conference with Xabi Alonso, and then they play Saturday against Valencia. So that's well, what can I say?
Well, if he really wants to annoy Xabi Alonso, he should turn up to training tomorrow wearing that.
Well, if he is left out at the weekend, we'll probably be hearing from Gustavo once again to get the reaction to all of that. Gustavo, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see what happens this weekend with Vini Jr. And of course, you can stay up to date with everything that's going on in La Liga on ESPN+. They are taking on Valencia, Real Madrid. We're also going to see Atleti against Sevilla and Barcelona up against Elche on Sunday. This is a new pattern of play in the Premier League, and I'll let you know in a minute why we're talking about this. 19% of goals have come from corner kicks this season, which is the highest such percentage on record since 06-07. It's an average of 2.7 goals per game this season, which is the lowest since the 14-15 season. And the average ball in play percentage of 54.8% is the lowest such percentage on record since 2015-2016. Pep Guardiola has had a few things to say about set-piece mania in the Premier League. He said every manager does what they believe. I want to score from free kicks and corners. I'm not naive to that. I want it. but I spend my time on what we have to do to play better, attack better, and create chances to score goals. Gab Marcotti is here to join us now to talk about this. Does Pep have a point here? Or is he trying to blame these other teams for using these?
I thought you said Gab was here to talk about it.
Gab's here to talk about it
Wow,
in a minute, but I want to
there
know
we go.
I want to know what you think about what Pep said here.
Well,
He's saying that he believes that basically the Premier League has gone back to an era of set pieces. Is he having a go at the likes of Arsenal here, who are ahead of them in the table right now and having a lot of success?
Well, there's been a
with
lot
this
of
method?
There's been a lot of, yeah, I mean, set pieces have always been part of the game, and you've always tried to be the best you can at it. Every manager has. No manager has ever said, let's have a bad set piece. So every manager has wanted it. Some have gone about it a little bit more methodically, certainly in recent years. There's been, I noticed, a lot of long throws this season are coming in, and a lot of people challenging for second balls and whatnot. I don't know what the stats say, but it is what it is. You still got to win football games. You got to rack up the most points you can. Nothing's changed. The team at the top of the league at the end of the year will be the team with the most points, regardless of how they got it.
My thing is, I really don't like to see managers talking about other teams and how they approach the game. And listen, it's all well and good for Pep Guardiola to kind of speak about how he goes about business with Manchester City, but not everybody in the league can have an Erling Haaland. And let's be honest, without Erling Haaland certainly this season, Manchester City would be nowhere near the top as even though they're well behind Arsenal at this point. So I really don't agree with that sentiment. Now, everybody else is trying to keep up with the Manchester Cities, the Arsenals, the Liverpools, or whoever, and have to do that on a far smaller budget, and have to pay close attention to things like set pieces in an effort to close that gap. Not everybody can go out and spend the kind of money that you saw Liverpool spend this summer. Not everybody, as I say, can buy an Erling Haaland. So I find that sentiment, and while he didn't mention Arsenal by name in his statement, you kind of wondered about Arsenal. But the truth is, while Arsenal are absolutely fantastic about set pieces, and we've said a lot about that as well, Arsenal are a very good footballing team, and you see that. Now, the fact that they have two centre-backs and the deliveries from Shaka and Rice, etc., that has the numbers looking the way that they do, is not to be faulted, and certainly should be scorned in the way that Pep Guardiola seems to be doing in this statement.
Is it a dig at Arsenal for you, Gab?
I think he knows what he's doing. He's not just talking. He knows why he's being asked the question. He knows that, I think, Arsenal had scored, 3 goals or 5 goals from open play in the Premier League this season, and yet they're right up there. I think it was 16 in total, something like that. So he can choose how he answers the question. He answered it a certain way, and I think he answered in a way where he was true to himself. And then if people want to have a dig, that's fine. But I think Pep realizes, I think most people watch the game realize that, as Shaka said, Arsenal can be a good footballing side. I don't think they've necessarily been a brilliant one over the last 3-4 weeks, but that's also because, let's face it, their best playmaker, Martin Odegaard, hasn't been there. Bukayo Saka coming back from injury. I don't think we've seen vintage Bukayo just yet, even though he scored the other night. So I think all that Arteta's doing is trying to gain any advantage he can, and set pieces are a big part of that because they're good at it. Ultimately, you only have a finite amount of time on the training pitch, and if you choose to work on set pieces, it's necessarily to the detriment of something else. But make no mistake about it, Arsenal do both things really, really well.
Yeah, Shaq just said that. I mean, they if you want it to be set pieces, they can do it. If you want to fight, they can do it. You want to be physical, they can do it. Arsenal, this is, and if you want to play football, they can do it. Now, they haven't won anything yet in terms of the Premier League, but they're on a good pathway at the moment. I'm going to throw a name out to you to see if it means anything. What?
I'm just interested.
James French. Anybody?
No, you've got me beat.
Okay. He is Manchester City's set-piece coach. And guess when they brought him in? 2025. Start of this season. So, I'm presuming the current Manchester City manager has some sort of say in this. Otherwise, they're just bringing staff members in, because Pep Linders has gone in there, former Liverpool manager, went to manage at Leipzig, went to manage, I think, in Austria, was a disaster. He's in there, former Liverpool coach, and they brought a set-piece coach or another set-piece coach in the summer. So what the hell is he talking about? They're working on set pieces. Otherwise, they're paying a guy for nothing. It's just other teams have been better at it. And if set pieces are not important, it's more important to play football. Why are you bringing this guy in? I don't know. It's very, very hypocritical, Gab. Not you.
I don't think it's a hypocrite. I think partly it's an arms race, because when we talk about set piece coaching, we're not just talking about, you know, somebody designing patterns and you go and put a block on him and you run here and whatever. We're also talking about how do you defend set pieces? How do you prepare specifically, you know, for certain people? You know, the number of times, you know, for example, the other day with the throw-ins, when the throw-in comes in, you know it's going to go to the near post, and how do you defend that? You know, what you study tape, you see what different variations are there. So I think it's both ends, but you're absolutely right. And I think even before James French came in, I'm pretty sure Manchester City had a set-piece coach before that as well. I think the question, though, is, you know, you guys know, with these teams that play in Europe, they're only going to get maybe 3 hours on the training pitch all week. And the question is, how much time do you devote to set pieces? And how efficient are you with it? But yeah, no, there's no question. Manchester City also spend time on set pieces. Maybe not as much as Arsenal. Maybe they don't have the right players for it.
God, I hope they score from a set piece this weekend.
Well, does it matter? Does it matter if this is perceived as less entertaining overall for the Premier League if the stats are down in certain areas?
It matters to the neutral. It doesn't matter to Arsenal or their fans. It doesn't matter to Brentford and their fans. Use Brentford as an example. If they stay up, if they get into Europe, you know, we can take this kind of again. We are afforded this neutral view that, you know, we could say what we want and criticize any man of the game we want. But a club and its fan base, who all have, you know, very different targets at the start of the season, if these set pieces help them achieve those targets or excel them, they're not going to complain in the slightest. And which is why, again, I find it, I don't think a current manager needs to be criticizing other teams and how they go about achieving their targets. I don't like that.
If Bernardo Silva whips a ball in at the weekend, I don't remember who City are playing at the moment, but if he whips a cross in from a corner and Erling Haaland rises above everybody and bashes it in, bosh, 1-0, what's Guardiola going to be running up the touchline going, no, don't want it. Chop it off, set pieces, boring. Come on.
Just doesn't like these methods.
Well, not many people liked his methods last year when he lost 8 in the bounce and they fell off the cliff and they couldn't defend.
Yep.
He'd have taken set pieces last year when they couldn't win a game for toffee.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
You believe we're talking about set pieces?
Set piece goals.
Almost as bad as talking. What are you blabbing on? It's almost as bad about talking about goalies.
Oh, we love talking about goalies.
No, we don't.
Thank you very much,
Nice conversation about the goalies yesterday. We'll see if there are any more coming up today.
Please.
We love this conversation. Juventus have appointed former Italy head coach Luciano Spalletti as their manager until the end of the season. He has replaced Igor Tudor, who was sacked after the loss to Lazio on Sunday. It had been a winless run of 8 matches for Juventus. Gab Marcotti still with us. Not your favourite appointment, it's fair to say, Gab.
Well, no, there's several things that go to this. One is, and I wrote a column about this, is that Spalletti he's a Band-Aid. He's a shot of adrenaline. Will he do better than Tudor? Probably. But the point is, Juventus's problems run a lot deeper than that. It's like a body where you need to let your toxins run through them rather than go and spend money on some fancy new drug that's going to make you feel good for an hour. But then after that, you're going to face serious problems. The reality is Juve are in this situation because of mistakes that were made in the past, bad decisions by many different people. Tudor and Damien Comolli and Giorgio Chiellini were the ones kind of carrying the can. But they were in a straitjacket over the summer, both with their signings and with the way and with the way perhaps they handled Tudor as well. I mean, remember, Comolli only took over on June 1st, and like a week later they were in the US for the Club World Cup. So all of that said, I think what they need now is continue your detox. And instead, you bring in a fancy, highly paid manager. Reportedly, his deal is through the end of the season, but if he qualifies for the Champions League, he gets another 2 years. I don't know that necessarily makes sense. Juventus should be qualifying for the Champions League regardless. They qualified for the Champions League last year, and they had Motta and freaking Tudor, right? They need somebody who can really toe the party line, which is right now for Juve is we need to fix the long-term damage to our books. Every time you look at this and you see, oh wow, look, there's Kostic, there's Rugani. Most normal people would have thought these guys would have retired like 3 years ago. No, they're still there on the books. They're still paying for them. Freaking Archer is still on Juve's books, believe it or not, even though he's on loan in Brazil right now. So you can't think of Juve as a normal team that's going to build in a normal way until they manage to somehow fix their books. And my fear is with Spalletti, you're not going to go there. You're going to get a guy who's 66 years old, who obviously isn't going to be thinking long term. He's going to want to turn things around now. Inevitably, he will probably try to bring you to wheel and deal to bring in other players. And he's also a guy, frankly, let's not forget how it ended in his previous two jobs, right? With Italy, we know the absolute disaster at the Euros, disaster against Norway. I thought even worse against Moldova. And he threw a hissy fit and then was sacked. Before that, at Napoli, what happened? They've won the title, a couple games left to play. He gets an email he doesn't like from the club president and then ends up resigning. So you want a guy who's going to be a calming influence right now with this group of players, many of whom are fragile, many of whom are in unusual or singular situations. I don't think Spalletti gives you any of that.
And I'm sure the Napoli tattoo on his forearm will go down well as well, Gab. It is Napoli at the top of the table in the Serie A. When we take a look at the top of the table, are they in control of it? And how much of a threat are Roma under Gasperini?
Well, first of all, it's still pretty tight. Yeah, those two teams are at the top. I didn't think Gasperini was going to do well at Roma. Shows you what I know. He's right up there at the top. And more importantly, Roma's underlying metrics are actually really, really good for those who are into that statistical stuff. So it's a bit surprising. He's kind of done it with waifs and strays. Dovbyk, he's relaunched Sule. He's getting a tune out of Dybala of late. He's relaunched Mario Hermoso, who looked like he was going to be on a complete scrap heap. Manu Kone is living up to the hype. So he's done really, really well. I think this is still very much wide open. I am not sold on Napoli at all. I don't think they played well against Lecce when they won on Tuesday. Lecce missing a penalty along the way. I don't think they played particularly well against Inter either when they won 3-1 at the weekend. So Conte can go out there and say, "Oh, look at us. We know how to suffer. We only win 1-0, and then the opposition take a million chances on goal, but we don't concede. We don't." How about you don't suffer? How about you take the ball and you dominate the opposition, which we've seen Conte teams do in the past, but which we really haven't seen from them yet this season.
Along with Alexis and Shaka. And on top of all of this, he's still been kind enough to bring us his power rankings.
Oh, what a power rankings it says. No change to the top three. They all win rather comfortably. There's a lot of teams losing behind them. Leipzig, who've been a little bit of a surprise package in the Bundesliga. PSV, top of Eredivisie and going so well in Champions League. Bournemouth, who have been an absolute fairy tale story in the Premier League this season, they get a huge nod. Galatasaray, PSG down 2 after drawing with Lorient. Napoli, top of Serie A. Stuttgart, who again have been a little bit of a surprise, in a 10.
Well, looking at all of these bigwigs, I have got a real problem with Stuttgart.
Why?
What have Stuttgart done to be in
They're
the top 10.
They're third in the Bundesliga.
They're third in the Bundesliga. Do you know how they've played in the last 5 games?
Oh, they've played.
They beat Mainz in the DFB Pokal. That was Derek Ray.
They are defending their title.
Wait, don't make excuses. They've played Mainz twice, once in the Pokal and the other one in the...
We love you, Derek. Derek's got COVID at the moment and he's in bed, sick, okay?
He's only
Can't
man.
take
He's
this
only man.
seriously when you say
Derek.
Pokal
He's only
like
man on
that.
the planet with COVID. What is COVID? COVID's not right. Doesn't even exist. So Mainz twice, who are third bottom of the league, lost to Fenerbahce in the Europa League, and beat Heidenheim, who are second bottom in the Bundesliga.
You are making a case for yourself to do Craig's power rankings?
No.
It sounds like it. But they are third. You can't blame them for who they have to play
I
against.
know they're third, but they
Right.
played the second and
That's
third
all right,
bottom
that's-
team in the Bundesliga.
Blame the computer for that.
and they lost in the Europa League to Fenerbahce. But they did win in the DFB Pokal.
Oh, look at that. He's making a case for himself to be on the Bundesliga coverage
take
there.
that seriously.
Gab, have you got any issues, not with Craig's pronunciation, but with Shaka's
I've
power
got issues.
rankings?
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Bayern, 14 consecutive wins to start the season. That breaks the record for a Big Five team, which was set by the legendary Milan side 92-93 under Fabio Capello. But yeah, I'd love to know, I was hoping perhaps Shaka can ask the computer on my behalf. Napoli, I'm assume, are right up there. They're 9th place because they're top of Serie A. I believe Roma are also joint top of Serie A. Well, what's wrong with them?
Roma lost to Inter a few weeks ago. Napoli beat Inter a couple of weeks ago. So Napoli get the nod.
It's the Inter algorithm. Got it.
Inter plays a big part in the algorithm.
Just to end, that little birdie did tell me that you almost forgot PSG for a second week running.
Yep.
The smile on your face.
birdie,
says that
that birdie again. That birdie again.
Well,
boy.
I've got to say, if he was on a computer looking at algorithms, it was at the bottom of a tub of soup. 'Cause
Shaka
he's
loves
been
the soup
he's been
from the
face down in
canteen.
his soup for about an hour and a half.
Loves the soup from the canteen, does Shaka. Thank you so much for joining us.
boy.
on the
DFB.
ESPN FC.
Oh, wait for it.
Stick around,
Florian
extra time is on the way next, and we'll hopefully get some more German from Craig Burley.
Oh God.
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Gab Marcotti's with us. Craig has been wonderfully
What happens?
offering up
it's-
some German.
Yes,
words
yes.
for
You know
us
what gets
today.
me? You know what gets me is
Shaq's here.
a lot of people. It seems to me, and it seems that the German football is the worst for it. But a lot of the guys that cover the Bundesliga, they just lose their mind. It's a very generic thing to say.
I want to see where you're going
They
with
go
this.
nuts with like pronunciation and enunciation more than any other league, I think. It's like this Vance on Company thing. You should be kneecapped. You know, Florian, you can't just say Florian. I know. And it's a bit like Bruno Fernandes. It's not.
I think you should start doing it
Right.
that way.
And I know maybe in Germany they say, but we're not in Germany. Florian Wirtz. All this, but it seems to be there's something in the air with the German coverage that just drains all common sense out of some commentators and pundits. They go into it, normal people.
What about when Shaq's on the Bundesliga coverage? Is he,
No, but
is he doing it
I'm kinda-
to your liking?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, I'm talking
Not
about
going too
on
far,
site.
right?
On site, I'm talking about. You know, all right, I'll name them. Derek, Archie. Derek and Archie. even Robbo. Even Stuart Robson got reined in to the Van Sant Company in the Der Klassiker game last year.
But
And
if that's how he properly pronounces his name.
Shut up, Shaq. Do you know when you go to Newcastle and do a game, or Liverpool? I don't go to Newcastle and start talking like a Geordie.
I want you to do your Geordie accent.
How was that? Yeah. How was that?
Away the lads.
How weird that lads. Gab, has Craig got a point? Or has he been too pernickety?
I completely understand where he's coming from. Look, this has been going on for a long time now. I do wonder, sometimes I hear sort of native English speakers from the southeast of England, and they pronounce Joe Bellingham with a German accent, or Harry Kane, the way a German would, Harry Kane, or whatever. Like, I mean, I wonder, is this actually necessary? And as long as they stick to overpronouncing the German names, but then they broaden it out, like you said, Vincent Company. All right, okay, sure. It's like, I get it. Pronunciations can be difficult. I think there are accepted pronunciation. I mean, the guy with the dreadlocks who used to manage Craig at Chelsea, when he was in Italy, we all called him Ruud Gullit, because guess what? That's a G. We're not Dutch, and we pronounce the G as Gullit. When he comes to England, everybody's like, oh look, it's Ruud Gullit. I'm like, where's the H? You guys change the pronunciation to accommodate a foreign name when it comes to Ruud Gullit, but you don't do it for 99% of the other foreign players who come to this country. So I think there's a lot of inconsistency. I wish we could just agree on how to pronounce somebody. And don't get me started on Tottenham Hotspur's Italian left back, please.
Okay. All right, Craig.
I don't mind. You call me in and people do. But people get hung up on it, don't they? And they get upset. But it's commentators, isn't it? Commentators.
Okay. Maybe in fairness to the ones who do speak German, they're more used to saying it that way because they're speaking German regularly, those who live out there.
No, I'm not being fair to anybody. It's not just Derek.
No, okay. You know what it is? No. Look, Derek is the GOAT. I'm not talking about Derek here. There are some commentators who will speak one foreign language, say they speak French, and so they'll go out of their way to show off how good their French pronunciation is when there's a French player playing. And then they'll go and they'll mangle every single Brazilian, German, Italian, Spaniard. But hey, it's okay because I speak French. Look how well I say Maxence Lacroix, right? That really rankles.
Okay.
But that's just me.
But it's not just that. It's
Sure,
a whole.
Craig, it's
no,
far
but
more
I'm
chilled
taking
out
a
A question, by the way.
No, but I'm telling you, it's not just, it's the whole, even the world feed commentators on the Bundesliga, they drive me nuts. They drive me nuts.
But they are
And they're just, they're just trying to show off. It's like there's something. You're not German. Just pronounce it normally. Nobody cares. The only people that care are commentators. They are train spotters. They're bird watchers. That's what they do. They need to get a life. I mean, nobody really cares about whether it's like Vincent or Vincent, and you're like having a briefing about it before a game. Do me a favour.
Okay. I'm glad you got that off your chest.
Oh, we just want to get it right, because my 8 friends online on Twitter might have a little pop at me, all that sort of stuff. Get a grip of yourself. Give your head a wobble.
Okay. First question or first comment today. Be honest, who'd trust this face to drive you around after a major operation? You know what's coming down?
Yes, I saw this.
Stevie Nicol taking Dan Thomas to his hospital appointments as he recovers from his transplant. There he is.
Oh, boy. Steve Nicol, who continually gets
What a lovely
lost.
guy.
Yeah. What's he doing up there anyway? He doesn't live in this area anymore.
He's been a great friend to Dan.
It seems
I know,
like
I'll tell you what it is.
Seems like you put your name forward for that job too.
I know, I texted him the other day. I was asking Daniel how he was the other day. Very nice. He never mentioned he wanted a ride. He did say, I'm thinking about getting a ride from a guy who's escaped from an asylum. And that's what that looks like. It looks like an escaped lunatic from one of the local asylums.
Well, you've been in the car a few times with Stevie.
Yeah,
Is it
it's a no-no. Let me tell you something, it's a no-no. He's got no patience, right? I'll tell you that for nothing, and he'll admit that. This man approaches stop signs like Formula One drivers approach corners. I mean, he speeds up when he's coming to them. And then he goes through 2 at Bradley Airport many years ago, goes through 2 stop signs at the main terminal, gets stopped and gets a ticket, and then complains that the officer gave him a ticket. Because he bowled straight through. So, yes, a bit like that. So he's the last man.
Okay.
Even if my appointment was 100 yards down the road and I want a ride, It ain't from him.
It's not from him. Okay, for Craig, do you still see Manchester United finishing lower than, sorry, I don't have the full, Newcastle, Tottenham and Chelsea?
Yes. Yeah, they've had a really good 3 games, obviously, after a really bad run of games. So a lot of work to be done. Yeah, I would still say those other sides, particularly Newcastle and Chelsea, to an extent, and maybe Tottenham, although they've got a lot of injuries. But I'd still say yes, yeah.
Gab, next question comes for you from Dan's Fancy Dress Shorts. And yeah, half my questions are chopped off on the page, so I need to read from the screen. Gab, with rumours that Vini Jr could push for a move to PSG, why would PSG take a chance on a volatile talent, and do past experiences with similar players make them think twice?
Twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I mean, it's not a knock on Vini, but he just doesn't fit what Paris Saint-Germain are trying to do right now. First of all, they already have a host of winger types, from Desiree Doué to Kvaratskhelia to Speedy Barcola to Dembele, who used to be a winger, lest we forget, to some of the youngsters coming through, from Mbaye to Sani Mayulu. So is Vini better than those guys? Yeah, maybe he's better than all of them, but he's also makes a lot more money than all of them. And when you insert somebody like that into the mix, on top of that, with his history that he's had of being the sort of temperamental player he is, it's just not worth it. I think, you know, Vini might make sense if he were to join a team where, you know, you've got a guy who's very much a player's coach. You've got a guy who's, you know, or a man manager, as they used to call them. Maybe a team where you've got a couple superstars. Vini would be one of them. The others work for them. They supply them the ball. That's not how Paris Saint-Germain play. It's not how they want to play. So no, to me, it would make no sense whatsoever.
Why would you want to cry, baby, when you got a good team? Yeah, and all your questions, you haven't got them. That's why.
Now. I've got them on my email.
I mean,
But
that's just, you know.
What they were looking like.
And you wonder why Sebi got in that, you know, self-combustion state of mind.
However, I've managed it really well.
Yes, you've come nowhere close to it. Nowhere close, Kay, to your credit.
Next question, Craig. Have Arsenal been brilliant this season, or have others underperformed?
Well, Liverpool have underperformed. Have Arsenal been brilliant? Brilliant at what?
Overall.
They've had brilliant results.
They've defended brilliantly.
They haven't played. I don't think they've played as well as we know they can yet, but they haven't had to. They've had, I think, is it 7 clean sheets now? They lost 1 goal at Newcastle in the last 7 or 8 games, whatever it was. So, brilliant results. I mean, you define brilliant. I mean, at the end of the year.
Scoring from set pieces, much.
Well, at the end of the year.
Guardiola.
Well, at the end of the season, when everything comes out in the wash, people just say, are you top of the league or not? Are you finishing second again or not? Or are you winning? They don't say, well, some might, but you're not going to sit there and discuss how brilliant they are or not. It's an end game, isn't it? And at the moment, they are getting to the end game, and pretty comfortably, it has to be said, without being brilliant. But maybe that's the balance that they're trying to achieve this year, is we don't want to be the fanciest team or necessarily have to be the fanciest team, but we have the players if need be, but we're going to be a more compact, not defensive minded, but making sure we have a good shape, and you can't argue that they've had, out of all the teams we would consider the elite teams in the Premier League, their shape has been the best from the start of the season to now.
I suppose both could be true, right? That others have underperformed and Arsenal have been brilliant, really good, whatever.
I think in many ways, both things are true. Arsenal, as I say, I think Arsenal have defended brilliantly. We know they can be a good footballing team. They certainly have the players to do that. Liverpool are a shadow of certainly the team we saw last season. City continue to be a shadow of the team we saw 2 seasons ago. And I don't think anybody else is really equipped to make a run at them. So this really is Arsenal's title to lose.
Last question, Gab, for the boys. Will not signing Mark Guehi due to a $5 million difference in valuation on the same day they signed Alexander Isak for $125 million go down as the season-defining mistake for Liverpool? After all, they already had a striker, Ugo Ekitike, who is playing sensationally.
I've been saying this all season long. If things go south for Liverpool this season, and I know that they've not been good, but we still have a whole season to play. People are going to point to Mark Guehi. To go into this campaign with, Van Dijk at his age, Konate a year away from free agency, and then they're backed up by Leone, who is, is like a stick figure who's got 14 Serie A starts under his belt, and Joe Gomez. Is madness, and they had the plan for Guehi. Something happened. I think we will find out the reality of what happened. We know that one of the stories that was put out there immediately, and I'm guessing this story probably comes from somewhere around the River Mersey, that, everything was agreed, but they had to pull the plug because Glasner threatened to resign if Guehi left. Well, we know that's not the case. Oliver Glasner, the Palace manager, told us that, no, I wasn't going to resign. I just would have been really disappointed. I think it's somewhere along the line, somebody dropped the ball. You had to have a plan B in case Guehi fell through, because you needed another body at center back. God forbid something happened to one or two regulars, or they go off the boil. And you might argue that they've done just that last couple games. So that puts them in a tough spot. Isak and Ekitike, you could argue, is a hedge against the future, right? You're cornering the market on center forwards. Even if neither of these two guys is, or one of these two guys isn't stellar this season, hey, that's fine. You can get that down the road. I don't have a problem with pushing the boat out on that, but yeah, not signing a center back, that is definitely a colossal mistake. And if you're a Liverpool fan, hopefully one that they can address in January.
I wonder if the righteous anger of Craig Burley came after a Bundesliga broadcast.
Well, I don't think, volume down. I don't think it would have been such a talking point had Van Dijk and Ibrahim Konate had been playing as well as they did last year, which they have not. Now, they've changed the full-back position, so you might say, well, that's a part of it, and I think you could argue that as well, but, I don't think Mark Guehi, although he plays left side of a back three for Palace, I don't think he's going to play left back, because they signed Milos Kerkez to do that, and he certainly doesn't play right back. So, yeah, that's, in terms of the squad, that was a big mistake, but that's not the reason why Liverpool are where they are. They are where they are because they have several players that are not playing well enough, and that was to Gab's point, that if they go off the boil, they needed somebody to bring in. The fact that they've gone off the boil is the big surprise. But yeah, in terms of recruitment, that was, because I think he's a very, I don't think there's many people don't think Mark Guehi is a very, very good player, very calm, very composed, good defender, good on the ball, very experienced now. And at that price, that would have been really, really good business. But that ship has sailed, unfortunately, to Germany, or thereabouts, I believe.
All right.
To go and see Van Son.
Van Son. I think we should get you to do pronunciation.
This is my pitch to not get on the Bundesliga.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
You've been doing so well.
I can't do meetings. No, I can't do meetings.
We don't need to do meetings anymore.
I can't do meetings. I can't do the meetings.
I think Craig would be great.
Let me just tell you, your Bundesliga meetings are absolutely stupid. I can't do meetings. Just get on the air, roll on and roll off. All this sort of running order guff.
Yeah, but you just showed that you're really good at those names. Like you're saying you don't
all
like
this scripted stuff. To you, to me, to you, to me. Not for me. I'm out.
We're going to go now. Bye. Before he throws a Sebi Bundesliga pronunciations. Thank you so much for being with us on the latest edition of Extra Time. We'll see you next.